Lost and found, how getting off track became my greatest gift. Welcome to Soft Girl Era, the sacred space where strong Black women unlearn survival, rediscover softness, and reclaim the joy, rest, and freedom they deserve without guilt, without apology, and without explanation. I'm your host, LeAnne Dolce, pronounced Dolce, like sweet softness whispered in French. I'm your guide from burnout to boundaries, from doing to being, from strong to soft, and loving every second of it. Today, I had the extraordinary privilege of sitting down with Tanya Mittal, a woman whose story is nothing short of revolutionary. Tanya is an entrepreneur, motivational speaker, philanthropist, TEDx speaker, and a living testament to the power of pivoting when life hands you detours that feel more like dead ends. They've turned adversity into advocacy, pain into purpose, and survival into a sacred mission to empower others. Their work has touched over 200,000 customers through their brand, Handmade Love, employed over 300 people, and inspired millions through their social media presence and motivational speaking. Tanya is making the world a better place by showing us that our detours are not punishments. They are invitations to realign with who we are truly meant to become. And today I'm here to share the insights from our conversation because what Tanya taught me, what they lived through and rose from, is something every single one of us needs to hear. So let me ask you something. How many of you are standing at a crossroads right now? How many of you feel like the life you planned, the career you built, the identity you wore so well is suddenly going to just not fitting anymore? Maybe it's too tight. Maybe it's too heavy. Maybe it just doesn't feel like you. And here's the thing nobody tells you, that feeling, that discomfort, it's not failure. It's not weakness. It's your soul whispering that it's time to pivot. Tanya Mittal knows this better than most. Born with a cleft lip and palate in Gwalior, India, Tanya spent their childhood navigating surgeries, bullying, and a world that constantly reminded them they were different. They faced social stigma, health challenges, and a family that, while loving, couldn't always provide the financial or emotional support they needed to chase their dreams. Society told Tanya to shrink, to marry, to settle. But Tanya chose to pivot. They dropped out of architecture school, not because they failed, but because they realized the path they were on wasn't theirs. It was someone else's dream dressed up in their name. And with just 500 rupees, about $6, Tanya launched Handmade Love, a business selling personalized gifts and apparel. They started small, selling cards online with help from their brother, traveling to Delhi for supplies, and returning home each night because of strict family curfews. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't easy, but it was theirs. And here's what I want you to understand: Tanya didn't wait for permission. They didn't wait for the perfect moment or the perfect plan. They pivoted with what they had, where they were, and trusted that the detour would lead somewhere worth going. Because here's the truth we need to tattoo on our hearts: you have the power to pivot at any stage, in any circumstance. Your journey is not defined by your setbacks, it's defined by how you choose to respond and realign. Now, let's talk about what happened next, because this is where it gets good. Tanya's business started to grow. They leveraged Instagram, creating content that was authentic, vulnerable, and deeply personal. They didn't just sell products, they sold a story, their story. And people connected with it. Handmade Love became more than a brand, it became a movement, a lifeline for people who felt unseen, unheard, and underestimated. But Tanya didn't stop there. They launched a sari business, creating Get Ready With Me videos that celebrated traditional Indian attire and empowered women, especially in tier 2 cities, to embrace their heritage and their beauty. Tanya's ex partner had once criticized their appearance, told them they weren't enough. So Tanya turned that pain into power, becoming a social media influencer who redefined beauty standards and inspired millions of women to feel confident in their own skin. Let me pause here and say this: Tanya's pivot wasn't just about business, it was about identity. It was about reclaiming the narrative that had been written for them and rewriting it in their own hand. And that, my friends, is what the soft girl era is all about. It's about releasing the cape, the mask, the role you've been playing because someone else told you that's who you had to be. It's about saying, no, I'm choosing me now. Tanya's story reminds us that life's detours are invitations, not punishments. Every challenge is an opportunity to grow, to refocus, to discover new strengths and passions you didn't even know you had. And Tanya kept pivoting. They became a motivational speaker, a TEDx speaker, an author, a philanthropist. They won Miss Asia Tourism Universe in 2018. They received the Nari Shakti Award and the Youngest Woman Achiever Award. They became associate director of the Bliss Foundation, advocating for medical assistance and awareness for children with cleft conditions, the very condition they were born with. Tanya turned their pain into purpose. They turned survival into something sacred, and they did it by embracing the pivot over and over again. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. That's great for Tanya, but I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not a social media influencer. I don't have a platform. How does this apply to me? Here's how: the pivot isn't about the size of your platform, it's about the courage to change direction when your soul is screaming for something different. It's about recognizing that the life you're living, the role you're playing, the cape you're wearing, it doesn't have to be permanent. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to start over. And here's the part that will set you free: purpose often emerges from the process of starting over. Embracing change and uncertainty can lead you to deeper self discovery and unexpected success. Tanya didn't know that dropping out of architecture school would lead to a business serving over 200,000 customers. They didn't know that their pain would become their platform. They just knew they had to pivot. They had to trust the detour. And that's what I'm asking you to do today. Trust the detour. Trust that the discomfort you're feeling, the restlessness, the sense that something needs to change, that's not a sign you're failing. That's a sign you're ready to pivot. Let me tell you what else Tanya taught me. They taught me that the pivot doesn't happen in one grand moment. It happens in 1,000 tiny decisions. It happens when you say no to something that drains you. It happens when you say yes to something that scares you. It happens when you give yourself permission to rest without feeling guilty about it. It happens when you stop apologizing for taking up space, for wanting more, for daring to dream beyond what was handed to you. Tanya's journey wasn't linear. It was messy. It was hard. There were nights they probably cried themselves to sleep, wondering if they made the right choice. There were moments when the world told them to quit, to go back, to settle. But they kept going. They kept pivoting. And now they're changing lives. They're employing over 300 people. They're inspiring millions. They're advocating for children who are walking the same painful path they once walked. That's the power of the pivot. That's the power of trusting the detour. And I want you to feel something right now. I want you to feel empowered. I want you to feel hopeful. I want you to feel that spark, that little flame inside you that says, maybe, just maybe, I can do this too. Maybe I can pivot. Maybe I can trust the detour. Maybe my best life is waiting for me on the other side of this discomfort. Because it is. I promise you, it is. Tanya Mittal's proof. Their story is proof. And your story, the one you're still writing, the one you're still figuring out, it's proof too. So here's what I want you to do. Right now, I want you to think about one area in your life where you feel stuck. Just one. Maybe it's your career. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's the way you talk to yourself. Maybe it's the dream you've been sitting on, because you're terrified of what people will say. I want you to name it, not out loud, but in your heart. Name it now. I want you to commit to making a small pivot this week, not a massive overhaul, just a small shift, a new mindset, a different approach, a bold action. Maybe it's saying no to something that drains you. Maybe it's saying yes to something that scares you. Maybe it's just giving yourself permission to rest without feeling guilty about it. Because here's what Tanya taught me and what I want you to walk away with today. The pivot doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be yours. You don't need a detailed roadmap, you don't need a 5 year plan, you don't need approval from everyone in your life. You just need the courage to take one step in a new direction, one step toward the life that's calling you, one step toward the version of you that's softer, freer, more aligned, and more powerful than you ever imagined. And I want to be clear about something. This isn't about abandoning responsibility. This isn't about running away from hard things. This is about running toward the life you were meant to live. This is about honoring the whisper in your soul that says there's more for you. This is about refusing to shrink, to settle, to stay stuck because it's comfortable or because it's what everyone expects. Tanya could have stayed in the architecture school. They could have married the person their family chose. They could have lived a quiet, predictable life, but they didn't. They chose the detour. They chose the unknown. They chose themselves. And in doing so, they created a legacy that will outlive them, a legacy that touches lives, changes hearts, and gives permission to people who never thought they had the right to pivot. That's what's possible when you trust the detour. That's what's possible when you choose you. So I'm going to leave you with this. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting for someone else to tell you it's okay to pivot. You are the author of your story. You are the architect of your life, and you have the power to pivot right here, right now. The world doesn't need another version of you that's exhausted, depleted, and running on fumes. The world needs the version of you that's rested, restored, and radically aligned with your purpose. The world needs the version of you that chose the detour and found the destination. So go out there and pivot. Trust the discomfort, trust the uncertainty, trust the process, and know that on the other side of that pivot, there's a version of you that's been waiting patiently for you to finally choose them. Your soft girl era is waiting. Your purpose is waiting. Your joy is waiting. And it all starts with one small pivot. Now go, choose yourself, choose the detour, and watch how beautifully your life unfolds when you finally trust that getting lost was never the problem. It was always the invitation.